This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This episode is brought to you by Old El Paso. Does game day hosting feel like an extreme sport? Not anymore. With Old El Paso, feeding your hungry crowd is oh so easy. Old El Paso's crunchy stand-and stuffed shells, bold seasonings, and squeezable sauces are fumble-free, flavor-packed, and perfect for cheering on your team. Football season is taco season with Old El Paso. Level up your next tailgate or watch party. Shop game day essentials at oldelpaso.com.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
My three-row SUV gets 3 kids to 3 different sports.
Mom, let's go!
Luckily, ExxonMobil Synergy Supreme Plus Premium Gas is 3 times cleaner for better mileage.
Go on, find a station at Exxon.com. Synergy Supreme Plus gas compared to Synergy regular gas and port fuel injected engines. Benefits based on continuous use and may vary.
Hey there, Duke fans, and welcome to episode number 67 of DBR Bites. It is Sunday, November 10th, 2024, and Duke has a big basketball game coming up against the Kentucky Wildcats. It'll be in the 2024 Champions Classic down in Atlanta. Speaking of Atlanta, Jason Evans is here. I'm your host on the line. Jason Evans, the resident ATLian, will be at the game. You may not be able to see him from his seats, but he will see you. That is definitely for sure. Good morning, Jason.
Hey, Donald, how you doing? It's this is going to be, even though this is a Bites, we got a lot to talk about. This Kentucky game is important from the standpoint of us observing Duke and understanding what this Duke team's going to be, because honestly, this is the first time we're going to get a real look at rotations against a good team, and how do these guys perform when they're playing the kind of players who you're going to face in the NCAA tournament. Because other than maybe kind of that game against Arizona State, which was an exhibition, conditions were different. This is our first peek at what Duke is really going to look like, at least at this stage of the season.
I believe in academia they call that a test, Jason Evans. And yes,
you're right. Thank you.
This will be a big test for the Blue Devils. Let's get started with the Kentucky. We will talk a little bit about football after the break, but first, the Kentucky Wildcats of basketball, 23 in the AP and coaches poll. They are number 37 in KenPom, number 17 in Bart Torvik. They are 2-0. Both games so far, they have scored over 100 points. They won 103-62 against Wright State and 100-72 against Bucknell just last night. So, Jason, we'll talk about the players in a little bit, because I think the way that their players have been playing so far has been interesting. But let's overall go over the offense and the defense and what the Wildcats have to offer.
Yeah, the first thing is, and this is, I know you said don't want to talk about the players, but I think this tells you a lot about this Kentucky team on whole. This is not the John Calipari Kentucky of the past. The reality is there probably isn't a future NBA player on this roster. I'm not saying it's impossible. There are guys who have, aspects of skills that you could see perhaps making an NBA squad, but I mean, like, the notion. In the past, you played Kentucky and you were like, well, that guy looks like he's going to be playing in the league next year. And in a couple years, he's going to be an NBA starter.
And half our guys had played against them already in high school through all the circuses. They're on the McDonald's All-Americans. They're, Jordan Brand elites, so there was a familiarity about the Kentucky Wildcats when we played them because of the number of guys that had crossed over with some of our guys. But yes, in this kind, John Calipari is gone. He's gone to Arkansas. Mark Pope is in. He has a loaded talent lineup of new guys coming in from everywhere. one of his tasks was having to really create an entire roster of guys as everyone else kind of transferred elsewhere.
There's no one back. There's
no one back. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the funny thing is John Calipari when he went to Arkansas had to deal with the same thing, and he had that famous quote that was very funny where he said, "I talked to the team. There is no team." Like he had a team meeting with like no guys, and Mark Pope was secretly in Lexington doing the same thing. But hey, when we talk about the players, there are some great players on here. May not see the court in the NBA, but hey, they are doing work in college so far.
Yeah, and that's essentially when Duke played Kentucky in the past, it was a matchup of two teams that were probably very young, full of incredibly talented players who were going to be at the next level very, very quickly. And this year, Duke is still that roster.
Yep.
Even though we've gotten older, we're still that roster, but Kentucky is very much the opposite of that. It's a team full of fifth-year seniors for the most part, guys who are, the vagabonds of college basketball, moving around from team to team, some of them, and they are old. They are very, very, very old. It is worth noting, in terms of stylistically, Mark Pope does like to run. He likes to push the ball up the floor. He likes to shoot a lot of three-pointers. He didn't do it every year at BYU, but BYU, most of his years at BYU, they were a team that was up there in pace and up there in terms of three-pointers attempted. And you look at this Kentucky team this year, where he sort of was able to, because of Kentucky's NIL budget and their reputation, he could put together the roster he wanted from available transfers. And he's gotten some guys who are happy playing at a fast pace. In their two preseason games against Wright State and not preseason, but you know what I'm saying, early season matchups against Wright State and Bucknell, they played really fast. I've talked a little bit on this show about, number of possessions and is Duke going to get into the mid to upper 70s in terms of possessions. They played Kentucky in their first game against Wright State, played 74 possessions. Against Bucknell, they had 79 possessions in their game. And as I mentioned on the last podcast, we could see a very rare 80 possession game, this Duke versus Kentucky game, if both teams are really pushing the ball. Donald, the last time Duke had a game that had 80 possessions in it was 2021. Last year, we didn't have a single game last year where we played more than 76 possessions. I'll guarantee you that unless something crazy happens, this game is closer to 80 than it is to 76.
Well, that's kind of the style, right? Because in these type of games, when you have that's more of an NBA style type of game. NBA possessions are like closer to 100, right? But these guys want you to play fast because they want to get more shots. They want to get more opportunities to score 100 points. You can't do that, by having 40 possessions and, playing 30-second basketball.
You can't do it by having 60 possessions.
Right. So it's hard to do. So if they want to get, 100 points and maybe this becomes a track meet of sorts, you want to have as many possessions as possible to not only score enough points, but also if you're behind in a game like this, to catch up.
Yeah. Ken Pomeroy says that Duke wins this game 83-76. He's crazy if he thinks the winning team will have more than 83 points in this game. I just feel that in my bones. And it is, it's also worth noting from a stylistic standpoint that so far, at least, Mark Pope is going incredibly deep with this Kentucky club.
Yes.
He has 10 guys averaging better than 13 minutes, 7 of them averaging double-digit scoring. This is a Kentucky club where if you ask me who their best player is, I'm not sure I could tell you. And it's not really because they've got, Con Knippel and Cooper Flagg type players where you're like, oh, those guys are, elite All-Americans. It's because you look at it, you're like, well, that guy's really good at this part of the game, but he's not that athletic. And that guy's really good at shooting, but he can't play defense. And that guy's really good at defense, but he can't shoot. And, on and on down the roster. Not to say they're deeply flawed players, but these are not guys who excel in a lot of the game. They tend to be sort of specialists to some extent. At least a lot of them do.
So, Jason, it actually leads me to what I was kind of thinking about with the players. So why don't we get into the players? Because I think it's important to note that when you look at some of these, at least the first two games, right? We're still in the small sample size era of the season. But when you look at the production that they've gotten, a lot of production has come from the bench, namely in scoring and Kobe Wright. And then even in assists.
Kobe Bray.
Kobe Bray. Kobe Bray. Kobe Bray. 19 points a game. But then you also have Kerr Kriisa, who in 21 minutes, like 17 minutes off the bench, is averaging 8.5 assists per game. So you have guys who are coming off the bench, playing a lot of minutes, and also contributing as much as a starter would.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we've talked about Duke's bench and how good it is, and we're like, there's no drop off from the starters to those next three, the experienced transfers who come in for Duke. Kentucky's kind of the same way. I mean, like you mentioned, Kerr Kriisa. This dude was a starter at Arizona and West Virginia, and now he's coming off the bench for Kentucky. A lot of the guys that they have on their bench are guys who are good enough to start at plenty of other programs, and so far, at least, Mark Pope's done a great job of keeping everybody happy and keeping everybody on the same page. It's a lot of guys that's somewhat similar to Mason Gillis and Sion James and Malik Brown. They understand I have a role and I'm here because this team is going to win. And, I don't need to put on a showcase for NBA scouts and the such that my best future is succeeding right here at Kentucky and making the team better.
And if you remember Kobe Bray, actually, a lot of Duke fans might be familiar with that name.
Oh, we wanted him.
Because we wanted him bad in the transfer portal back in the spring. He obviously ended up at Kentucky. And to be clear, we are very, very happy with what we did get in the transfer portal. But the guy can shoot. And that was one of the things about him is when he comes in, he is lighting up from outside. He's shooting, quote, 83% from three. That's really because I think he's only missed one shot so far.
Actually, he's 10 of 12 on the season. Yeah,
10 of 12, yeah.
Earlier I was saying I don't know who their best player is. But I can tell you that Kobe Bray is the most dangerous player on the team. As we mentioned, fifth-year transfer from Dayton, might be certainly arguably the best shooter in the country. We love our Con Knipples. Kobe Bray, my man can fill it up. Like I said, 10 of 12 from three on the season, averaging 19 points per game. But a limited player in other aspects. He's not a playmaker. He's not a defender. Boy, is he not a defender. He's mostly a catch and shoot guy. He's not someone who, tends to beat you off the dribble very much at all, but you cannot leave him alone. If you leave him alone, he will bury you. And because of those 3-pointers and his unlimited range, he can score in bunches on you. He's 6'7". I could imagine Duke probably, when he's in the game, you probably see like a Con Knippel matching up with him. One of the things about Kentucky is they got a few guys who are a little bit smaller. And from a size standpoint, some of Duke's perimeter players could give them some trouble with our length and our size. Should we go through like the starters? Kobe Bray, by the way, doesn't start. It's worth noting.
Right. I was going to say Kobe Bray doesn't start. Kerr Kriisa doesn't start. But yes, let's talk about the guys who do.
Yeah, exactly. I think actually, arguably their best player is 7-foot big man Amari Williams. He's a fifth-year senior who came over from Drexel. He is a man mountain. Weighs over 260 pounds. He tries to bully everyone in the post. A super high usage guy. Like they feed him a ton when he's in the game. Drexel did the same thing. When dude is in the game, he's getting the ball in the post and he's going to try and power through you. But the interesting thing is, as good as he is, I mean, he's averaging 13 and a half rebounds per game. He's scoring really nicely. He's a turnover machine.
Yes. And he was at Drexel too, because he gets the ball so much. He doesn't have handles. He's a big guy. So all he's trying to do is turn around, power to the rim, and go hard. But because of that, it's kind of similar to what we talked about early in the preseason with Khaman. He'll bring the ball down. And when he brings the ball down, it gets taken from him.
Yeah, and I think he's a really interesting matchup with Man because Khaman is an uber athlete, but he is still a little bit thinner, and he's more athletic. Whereas Amari Williams is a guy who's just going to be super physical with you and is thick and just physically imposing. So I think that's a really interesting matchup. Another guy who I think could be their best player is Lamont Butler, a fifth-year transfer from San Diego State. Folks, you should remember that name. He was an absolute hero of their Final Four run a couple years ago. I want to say he was he like West Region MVP or something like that?
I think so.
Yeah, and he made like the all Final Four team, the all tournament team. Not a big scorer at San Diego State. And when he transferred to Kentucky, he talked openly about wanting to score more and wanting to play in a more up-tempo offense to show the NBA guys, look at what I can do, because he is a great defender, an elite defender. He's just 6'2", but he is going to get his arms in the passing lanes. He is going to cause problems for your guards. I feel for you, CFOS. Caleb Foster is going to have trouble with Lamont Butler. But even though Butler said, "Oh, I'm coming to Kentucky to show off my offense to the NBA," hasn't happened so far. He's only averaging 10 points per game. And frankly, when you look at the number of guys on Kentucky who are scoring, he looks like he's, at best third or fourth option when he's on the floor. So he isn't necessarily doing what he had hoped so far. But man, he's a guy who just makes everyone around him better. And like I said, a truly elite defender. Let me hit a couple other guys really quickly. I'm trying to go sort of through the starters. Jackson Robinson is a 6'6" wing, came over from BYU, followed his coach Mark Pope. Stop me if you heard this before. He's a fifth-year senior.
Never heard that. Never heard that in college ever.
Yeah, all these guys are fifth-year seniors. He's a good shooter, not a great shooter, but likes to shoot a lot from the outside. Not super long and not super athletic, but Jackson Robinson may be their sort of best athlete among the starters, at least. They've got a 6'4" junior guard, Otega Owe, who came over from Oklahoma. He had 21 points in their first game. He's another guy who's a defensive pest. He has 5 steals through 2 games, has a good defensive reputation. Unlike everyone else, though, like I said, he's a junior. He's like the youngest guy on the squad, practically. And then the last one I wanted to mention, the 5th starter, is Andrew Carr. And if you're an ACC fan, if you're a Duke fan, you should be familiar with him. Andrew Carr was at Wake the past couple of years. He scored in double figures every single time he's faced Duke in his career. So I've seen enough of Andrew Carr. He's 6'11", 230. But has very decent agility, very comfortable stepping outside. Andrew Carr is that guy. He'll kill you with the baseline jumpers, fadeaway baseline jumpers, which ordinarily you wouldn't think is a good shot, but Andrew Carr knocks that shot down a lot. And I mention him because I think he will get the assignment to try and control Cooper Flagg. Good luck with that, Andrew. I don't know that Carr has the athleticism and the foot quickness to really stay in front of Cooper Flagg, but I think he's going to try. That would be my bet. If I was not John Calipari. if I was Mark Pope, I would be probably looking at Andrew Carr as the best matchup for Cooper Flagg. And always, every single game, we need to talk about who tries to control Cooper. Does the other opposing team have someone who can try and control him? I sort of suspect that if Carr has trouble with it, and I think he might, because I think Cooper's going to get the ball on the perimeter and try and go around Carr. If he has trouble, though, they've got tons of guys on the bench who can come in and help out with that. And I think you may actually even see Jackson Robinson, who I mentioned earlier, the 6'6" wing. I think you could see him trying to guard Cooper Flagg. You also may see Kentucky, not play man-to-man, try and play zone, stuff like that. I think they're going to try and do a lot of different things to shake up a Duke team that is young and not experienced in nearly the way that Kentucky is.
I think the great thing about this game for Duke, and maybe for the coaching staff, they might not think it's great like I do, but I think the great thing is that there is a matchup for every position. There's a test for every single guy on this roster when they're in the game, right? Like whether it's on offense or on defense, trying to control, Kentucky. This is a big test for the team, but I like that they're like at every single position. It feels like, hey, I wonder who's going to win this battle. If this battle is going to be what determines the game. So I lead with you, Jason. I want to ask you if there's a matchup that you think fans should be keening in on, because I wonder if it's the interior, right? If man can win the battle of the bigs, then we might have a chance to win this game and win pretty handily, because I feel like the other ones are kind of neutral, and that is a experienced center, very experienced center who we've heard about for a long time, versus a guy who's in his 3rd game of college and might be, as we've talked about throughout the preseason and early season, the rawest talent that we have on this team. May not have everything quite together on offense, but on defense, again, as he learns, he grows and gets better. So do you think there's a matchup within the starting 5 or even off the bench that you think is the most crucial for Duke?
I mean, it's hard to say because Kentucky moves so many. They've got so much depth.
Yeah.
They've got so many different pieces, and they move so many guys around that there's not going to be a matchup where you go, well, those guys are going to face each other for 20-plus minutes in this game. That just doesn't exist, and as a result, it's hard to identify any one thing. I think you're correct that if you're going to pick one matchup, it is probably the man versus Amari Williams matchup there in the post. And if one of those guys is able to get the other one in trouble, and dominate to some extent, especially on the boards, by the way, because Amari Williams, big rebounding guy, I mentioned earlier, 13.5 rebounds per game in their first 2 games. If one of those guys is able to control the other on the boards, that becomes a huge factor in getting extra possessions, in limiting teams to not getting second shots, and those kind of things. When you're two heavyweights facing off, those kind of extra possessions matter a whole hell
Yeah.
of a lot. The
Yeah.
other thing I'd say about this Kentucky team is they've done a good job so far, considering they are all transfers. They have a couple freshmen who are not the kind of impact freshmen they usually do. They've done a good job so far of playing together like a team. Like their assist rate is crazy. They get assists on like 70% of their baskets, which is remarkable because not a single guy in this team has ever played with any of his teammates before. But it's because they are super experienced and they know how to play college basketball the right way. But I feel like defense is a place where they could be in trouble. I just don't, as I look up and down their lineup, other than Lamont Butler, I don't see any real plus defenders. Not that they've got guys who are terrible on defense, but they don't have a lot of guys who stand out to you. They don't have a ton of length. It's not like this Duke team where we're rolling out there with, nothing but guys who have reputations as good defenders. When Con Knippel's like considered the worst defender among your top 8, you're probably in pretty good shape. So, in that regard, I think Kentucky may struggle to stop Duke, to slow Duke down. And like if you look at their results on the season so far, like they get up 70 points, more than 70 points to Bucknell, and Bucknell's not a great offensive team. Now, granted, it's a high possession game. Kentucky's running up and down the floor, and at a certain point, teams got to score, but they gave up 72 points to a Bucknell team that's just not a great offensive team. So if they're going to struggle to stop Duke a lot, then the question becomes, can they keep up with Duke on offense? And then it comes down, I think, to Kobe Bray. If Kobe Bray stays insanely hot, as we mentioned, 10 of 12 on the season for three-point range, outrageous. If he stays insanely hot, then this becomes a contest, like first to 90, maybe first to 100. If he doesn't, if Duke is able to use their length, some of our really good perimeter defenders to slow him down and keep Kentucky from hitting a lot of threes, then I'm just not seeing a formula where Kentucky stays in this game. I think Duke, because of the sort of the breadth of our talent and the fact that we have so many guys who can do multiple things well, I think we can play different stylistic games. I'm not sure Kentucky can play a game where it's played at a high number, where Duke is scoring a lot and Kentucky has to keep up with us on that end. We'll see. I could be wrong.
I think even KenPom, right, you said predicted was 83 to 76, something like that, which kind of means that a possession or two here and there could be the difference. And I think when it comes to defense, the great thing is we've had a lot of times where our defense has turned into offense, points off turnovers, that sort of thing. And so if you are in a track meet with a team and they end up missing a couple shots and you turn those into, or you get a turnover and you turn those into points on the other end, that again becomes that lead that grows just ever so slightly to the point where they have to panic and get out of their game. And as we mentioned in the first couple parts of the season, we want them to kind of play our game. We want them to play our tempo. We want them to fall right into what we want to do. I think when it comes to Kobe Bray, the matchup that I'm looking for when he comes in, Sion James, right? Who has he been guarding? He's been guarding that best 3-point shooter on the team, getting right in their face. You're not moving him. He's made of iron, so you're not moving him. But the idea of having Kobe Bray having someone really in his face the entire time he's in, maybe he misses a couple shots that they rely on, right, to get going. And if he misses a couple shots, we go other way, we can get points off of him. This might be the difference in this game. I think it might be a closer game than people expect. Expect some back and forth. Expect maybe a couple lead changes here and there. But the defense is what's going to be the key here if it comes down to getting a couple stops here and there that let us set up a run, one of these Duke runs that we've had in the first couple of games. And when we can do that, then we can put some distance between us and Kentucky and hopefully get the win. Anything else before we wrap up on the basketball side?
No, I just wanted to really quickly mention that we talked about KenPom and KenPom rankings and such. Pomeroy is much lower on Kentucky than other people. Like you said, Bart Torvik has Kentucky as the number 15 team in the country. The computer, not the computer, sorry, the human polls have them just inside the top 25. Pomeroy is much more down on them. It'll be interesting to see whether he is right or whether Bart Torvik is right. I'm just eager to see this Duke team in a game like this against the kind of team you would face in a Sweet 16. I I don't want to jinx this, but I have this sneaky feeling that this Duke team is better than even a lot of, the national pundits think. And this Kentucky game could be a little bit of a coming out party for some of these guys.
Hey, this is the way to do it. Remember a few years ago, the 2018 game? Everyone's like,
baby,
Duke's a little, they might be a little less than some of the top teams. And then after that, they were number one. And everyone's like, never mind, our bad. I would love for everyone on Wednesday morning to be like, never mind, Duke, you got it. That's all you over there. But again, Tuesday night, estimated time of 9 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. It's the Champions Classic. The first game usually runs long, so we're probably looking at 10:40.
Actually, the first game starts at 6:30, not at 7. So the 9 o'clock is with that half hour built in there. But yeah, I think you're probably looking at like a 9:40-ish start.
Yeah. Those games never run on time. Whether we're the first game or the second game, they never run on time. So expect to wait a little bit before our game starts. It should be on ESPN once the first game between Michigan State and Kansas is done.
And I'll be in the house with my buddies from the class of '89. Reunion time. We'll be up in one of the suites. If you look at the top of the stadium, we'll be there. We'll be eating and drinking the complimentary food and enjoying ourselves in the suite.
Like I said, you will not see Jason Evans at this game, but he will see you from where he is sitting.
Exactly, baby.
Drinking and eating very comfortably. I am jealous of you, sir. Let's pause right here. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, Duke football back in the win column. We'll talk about how they did it after this. Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods.
That's right, Duke fans. The busy holiday season is here, and Uncommon Goods makes it less stressful with incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list, all in one spot. Gifts that spark joy, wonder, delight, and it's exactly what I wanted feeling. Somehow, they've created a place where you can find the perfect gift for anyone.
Perfect gifts indeed, Jason. I just got an acupuncture mat so that I can hit those pressure points that bother me on a regular basis. And they have a can holder for the shower, so I can relax with my favorite beverage if I need a moment to wash the day away.
Yeah, I wonder what beverage that is. Okay, folks, when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches. So shop now before they sell out this holiday season. And with every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give $1 back to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They have donated, Donald, more than $3 million to date.
That's a lot of money. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/DukeBB. That's DUKEBB. Uncommongoods.com/DukeBB for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
This episode is brought to you by Iams Pet Food. When you choose Iams dry dog or cat food, you can see a difference in your pet with your own eyes. Healthy energy in 5 days, healthy digestion in 10 days, and healthy skin and coat in just 25 days. Satisfaction for you and them. Guaranteed or your money back. Feed Iams dry dog or cat food and see a visible difference. Visit iams.com/difference to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Old El Paso. Does game day hosting feel like an extreme sport? Not anymore. With Old El Paso, feeding your hungry crowd is oh so easy. Old El Paso's crunchy stand-and stuffed shells, bold seasonings, and squeezable sauces are fumble-free, flavor-packed, and perfect for cheering on your team. Football season is taco season with Old El Paso. Level up your next tailgate or watch party. Shop game day essentials at oldelpaso.com.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/MBO. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, we are back, and we shift our attention to the gridiron where yesterday, Duke football gets back in the win column. They win 29-19. They go down to Raleigh, Carter Finley Stadium, and defeat the NC State Wolfpack. They moved to 7-3 on the season, 3-3 in the ACC. Jason, I'm going to let you start because before, when we were discussing this game, you had a perfect quote or a perfect term to describe what this game was. Tell the fans what this game was.
I can't remember what was that. Wackadoodle. It was wackadoodle.
It was a wackadoodle. Wackadoodle game.
Yes, this game was wackadoodle. I mean, like, what a crazy contest. Literally, NC State in their first 4 plays, Duke had a safety and a fumble recovery on NC State's first 4 plays. There's just some, and look, it's a game where Duke is about to score, and they strip the ball from, was it Eli Pankol. They strip it from him. Mm-hmm. The guy runs the other direction. You think he's going to score a touchdown. He gets taken down short of the touchdown. There's no time left on the clock. Like, the crazy plays that happened. Malik Murphy ran for a touchdown. I was like, what are my eyes seeing?
Look, Jason, I texted my friend just the alert, because I get the notifications on ESPN of every touchdown, right?
Right.
And so I texted the alert to him saying, this should have been a national alert. The ESPN should have broken in SportsCenter with coverage. Malik Murphy has scored a rushing touchdown. Well, he has added running to his repertoire.
A friend pointed out to me that Malik Murphy had one of the great lines in the history of football. He had 3 rushes for -5 yards and a touchdown.
That's Jerome Bettis numbers. Yeah. You remember the Jerome Bettis? Jerome Bettis had it was a 5 carries, 1 yard, and 3 touchdown performance in one game.
Nice.
So we're into. Hey, if you're mentioned next to the bus when it comes rushing, just go ahead and put Malik Murphy in the Hall of Fame right now.
Yeah, no one is confusing Malik Murphy and Jerome Bettis.
But I will say, Jason, we clown about his rushing game, and it actually is great that he is running the ball in, even a small one. But in the air, I thought he did much better. The running game, again, was not where we want it to be.
Oh boy, yeah.
But I thought, I think 31 total yards rushing. But hey, this man was throwing the ball in the air. He had 2 touchdowns throwing, and more importantly, he had no interceptions while our team was taking the ball away from NC State at a regular pace.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is once again a game where the defense is the star. I mentioned the safety. I mentioned the fumble recovery, tons of tackles for losses. They had an interception. And to me, the story of the game was really summed up in mid-second quarter. Our defense committed a couple holding penalties. NC State marched down the field, and suddenly they had a 1st and goal. I want to say from like the 5 or the 6, something like that. And the D just held tight and held them to a field goal. And I thought it was a huge momentum moment because at the time, Duke was only leading 5-0. It felt like, the defense kept on setting us up and the offense kept on, not quite delivering. And it was a huge moment from a momentum standpoint because it became the theme for the game. That NC State would find a way to drive. They'd get down the field. They get into the red zone. Nothing more. And then they're kicking field goals or attempting field goals and missing field goals. And field goals instead of touchdowns in the red zone is where wins go to die. And that's what happened to NC State. I mean, in reality, like if you look at the overall stats on this game, the team stats, there's nothing that sticks out to you that says Duke dominated this game. I mean, like total yards was Duke 276, NC State 268. Duke's rushing attack was abysmally bad, 1.1 yards per carry. We had 31 yards on 27 carries. It's just awful. I mean, like the penalties were about the same. They had 2 turnovers. We had 1 turnover. The time possessions, like everything looks the same. And yet in the final score, it's Duke by 10 points. And they, I don't want to say super comfortable, but a game where you sort of felt like, Duke was kind of in control most of the game. And it's because our defense was bend and don't break, because NC State was kicking 3 field goals in the second quarter instead of scoring any touchdowns, kicking a field goal in the third quarter instead of scoring any. They didn't get a touchdown till late in the game, and so that to me is the story of the game. And this Duke defense, is just elite. They really are.
It's been fun to watch them this season, and fun to, again, despite the fact that we're 7-3, and there was the SMU game where again. The defense did all that work only to, lose the game against Miami. The defense did work in the first half, and then it kind of came apart in the second half. And then this game, they're able to, again, that defense has been constant throughout all of this. And even against Georgia Tech, when we lost early in October, it wasn't like the defense really failed us in that. It was a lot of offensive production that was not present on those games. So despite, again, this is the same as basketball, right? You can carry your defense everywhere. Your defense, if your defense is good, that can come with you on any carry on to any place, to any stadium, any arena in the country. And I think what Duke basketball is striving for is what Duke football has achieved so far this season, and that the defense has been elite. The defense has been there every single game. They have been giving the offense chances to win football games, and I think that's all you can ask for by keeping the other team at bay, taking the ball away, and making it where your offense has chances to put points on the board. It's a special thing that they have, and credit to Manny Diaz and the staff for getting that together. That's obviously something that has carried over from last year, but it feels like it's even better at some points this year because the amount of takeaways that they take, and also the opportune times that they do it in, right? How many times have the offense started with a short field because the defense did something inside of 20 yards or something like that? So this has been great for them, and they have a bye this weekend, so no Duke football, and then they come back. They have their last home game of the season on the 23rd against Virginia Tech, and then on the 30th, my birthday, the last game of the season at Wake Forest. So they have a chance to finish 9-3, which is incredible, and hopefully would mean an elevated bowl game for them in a nice little cushy weather location that would allow them to test themselves against an opponent and create for a good TV. But again, you need that offense to kind of continue to get it in gear.
Yeah, I got a couple other notes, and then I want to get back to what you were talking about with the upcoming schedule, because I have a comment on that. But in terms of the game, a couple of things I just wanted to note. We were talking about the defense earlier. There was a play, I want to say it was like early in the fourth quarter. I'm forgetting exactly when it was, but when I mention it, people will remember it, where NC State threw what looked like a touchdown pass at a fairly big moment in the game. And Jalen Stinson and someone else, I don't remember who the other guy was, grabbed this wide receiver in the air and drove him out of bounds in the end zone. I was just like, that is an unbelievable play. They did not allow the guy to get down. I was sort of like, are you allowed to catch a guy and carry him? Because that's almost what they did.
Yes, and that's the thing is that used to be if you caught him and they said, oh, we determined if he had put his feet down, he would be considered in bounds, so we give him the touchdown. Now, I mean, for several years now, that has been the case. So you can, a guy can catch a guy in the end zone and catch a receiver and say, oh, no, your feet are not touching the ground. Walk with me and carry them out of bounds. And it's like,
yeah, that's exactly what happened. It's a great, great play. I wanted to mention there was probably like the back-breaking moment of the game. In the fourth quarter, at the start of the fourth quarter, NC State had a first down, and their wide receivers dropped 3 passes in a row, like literally hit him in the hands, hit him in the chest. They dropped 3 passes in a row, and the third one that they dropped, it bounced off the guy and went to a Duke defender for an interception. I thought that was just a huge moment, because the very next play, I think it was either the next play or 2 plays later, Duke throws like a crossing play to Jordan Moore, and he has to dive to make the catch. And I was like, boy, talk about the difference in the wide receivers on these teams. NC State guys literally dropping balls in their hands, and here's Jordan Moore, like full extension, making a great play. And I wanted to mention that with Jordan Moore.
Real quick about Jordan Moore.
Yeah.
Real quick, I wanted to know, I believe I don't know if it was this week or last week, but he crossed over 2,000 yards receiving in his career. And I just want to note that 2.5 seasons ago, he was in a quarterback competition with Riley Leonard. And now he's one of the best wide receivers that Duke has ever had. I think that's incredible for Jordan Moore. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, I actually think Jordan Moore is better on hard catches, on like contested catches, than he is when he's open. He and Quayshawn Brown also had some really, really nice catches, in traffic and the such. I thought the Duke wide receivers did a really nice job this game. The reality is we don't have wide receivers who get super open. We don't have guys who create a lot of separation. It's just the reality of the skill set that we have. But we have guys who are really good at catching it in traffic. 2 other things I wanted to note really fast. All right. Did you notice, Donald, we didn't get a third down conversion this entire game? Duke was Duke was 0 of 9 on third down. Now, that's not entirely accurate, because I noticed in the fourth quarter, with about 5 minutes to go or something like that, Duke had a third down where there was a penalty committed by NC State, and we got a conversion by penalty. And I think that might have happened one other time earlier in the game. I don't remember. But
those don't count towards that percentage.
Exactly. So technically, Duke just won a game where they were 0 of 9 on third down. Like, I don't even know how you begin it. It's not like we went for it on fourth down a lot or anything. I don't know how you do that in a game, but somehow they did. And then the last thing is we got to shout out Todd Polino.
Yeah.
I mean, like, dude had the kicker nightmare against SMU. Just absolute, so bad that Duke's going for 2 rather than kicking extra points. And then he turns around in this game, hits a 49-yarder and a 50-yarder, and actually the 49-yarder might have been 50. It was darn close to it when they placed that ball on the ground. The 49-yarder cemented the win, but the 50-yarder I think was really big because it was right after I mentioned earlier in the game. NC State had a safety, and then and Duke couldn't do anything with it, punted it back to them, and they had a fumble. Duke again couldn't do anything with it, and that was where he had that 50-yard field goal. But I thought that was really important. Following the safety, following the fumble, for Duke to get some points. Again, I wish it was touchdown points rather than field goal points, but to at least get that field goal to go up 5-0. You want it to be more than 7, of course, but at least we got some points in that play, and I thought it was a huge confidence play for Todd Polino. So props to him. And then the very, very last thing is this. We got a headline from John Grantland.
Oh, we did.
John,
that's right.
Yes, John sends good headlines. He sent several. Here's the best one, though. He said, "Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Not the Blue Devils." I like that, John.
That was great. That was awesome. And John, thank you again for being all season sending us headlines for the football team because we really appreciate it.
And the last thing, you mentioned Duke's final games, home against Virginia Tech, at Wake Forest, and then we have a TBA bowl game. All right, so I've gone ahead and done this, Donald. I'm going to give you the odds, the percentages of where Duke finishes the season. They currently have 7 wins. There is a chance that Duke doesn't win any of these 3 remaining games, including the bowl game. There's a chance. I say there's a 10% chance Duke finishes with 7 wins, which, by the way, would be great based on where people thought we were in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say there's about a 30% chance that Duke finishes with a total of 8 wins. Virginia Tech's a good team. Wake Forest is going to need that game to get bowl eligible, I think. Bowl game's going to be tough. So I say there's about a 30% chance Duke only gets 8 wins. I'm going to give us about a 45% chance of 9 wins, going 2-1 in these final games against 2 good teams and against what I think is going to be a good team in a bowl game. And then I'm going to say there's a solid 15% chance that Duke finishes 3-0 in these games and ends the season with 10 victories. If you had told me a year ago, told me, heck, back in September, that this Duke team would have a chance to finish with 10 wins, I would have needed to check you into a hospital. And I am just so proud of what this guy, what this coaching staff, what Manny Diaz and all his assistants have done to build up this program. Because this Duke team today is way better than the Duke team that beat UConn and Northwestern. They are legitimately playing with good teams. They are competitive with anybody. Frankly, they should have beaten that SMU squad, and SMU is going to be a serious playoff contender at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
They very much were in the game against Miami, although I don't know what Miami is at this moment.
Well, they lost, so not happy about that, Jason.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. But I just can't say enough about the job that this team has done. And yeah, I think there's like a 60+% chance that this team's winning 9 or 10 games in the season. Amazing.
And the really weird quirk with this schedule this particular year, and it happens every 5 years or so, is that we were able to have 2 bye games or 2 bye weeks. And so what happened? We had the bye week in early October. Right after that, we had that Friday game against Florida State. We overcome the diva despite the fact that Florida State has not beaten anybody since Cal. It doesn't matter for us because we broke a streak that dated back to forever, right? We had never beaten them. So to be able to get 2 weeks to do that was great. The great thing about this is you kind of get a week's rest towards the end of the season, which is not always the case. And then you get to really put your mind into, and I think the coaching staff will say, hey, let's put our mind into these last 2 games of the regular season. Let's, take care of business at home. Let's go on the road to Wake Forest and get the win there. Let's get healthy. Let's work on some things in practice. But we have an extra week to prepare ourselves for these last 2 weeks of the season. And then from there, they have the confidence, hopefully, that, it doesn't matter what bowl you put us in. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. We'll go out and be ready for them because they'll have 3 weeks to prepare for that. And the way that this team has been operating with more than the minimum 7 days to prepare for a team, they've been doing pretty good. That track record not even just under Manny Diaz, but going all the way back to Cutcliffe. Bye weeks were awesome for us because it let us prepare for the team that was ahead of us. And so I look forward to the last 2 weeks of the season because I think that with this rest that we're getting here, they're going to get a chance to just regroup, recalibrate, and focus on those last 2 games and get us to a really good bowl game. Jason, anything else before we get up out of here?
No. And like you say, the fact that we get this bye week, guys get healthy. I mean, healthy matters at this point of the season in a big, big, big way. So yeah, I'm
small hang up, those small knocks and stuff like that. You get a week to kind of rest those and get back to 100% for the home stretch. But let's go ahead.
I was going to say, one interesting thing is I sort of wonder if I wonder if we're going to get Jacquez Moore back. The running attack has struggled since he went down. The other consideration with him, of course, is he's only played in 3 games so far this year.
Yep,
I think I'm right about
he's redshirt eligible. Yep.
Yeah, so he could technically play in 1 more and still be redshirt eligible. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether they decide to try and get an extra year out of him, or if he's ready to come back fairly soon. I'd love to get him back. I like what Star Thomas has been doing. I know Duke's trying in the running attack, but I think we could use Jacquez more.
Absolutely. And I think, this obviously wasn't the season he wanted. He was going to be the man
right
after Jordan Waters left.
I wouldn't blame him for wanting to redshirt. By the way, you mentioned Jordan Waters did not have a good day for NC State.
Right. Yeah. Sorry about that, my friend. You're in the other side, but it's great to see you thriving elsewhere. But that will do it for this episode of DBR Bites. Jason, thank you as always. Thank you as always out there for listening. Again, 9 p.m. Tuesday night in Atlanta at State Farm Arena. Jason will be the bird's eye view for us, and we will recap that game. Probably not on Tuesday.
To be clear, I'm not in the rafters, man. I'm not.
No, birds. You're going to be. I just imagine you've seen the video of Sting from old WCW, just sitting in the rafters, just observing everything and just noting it, and then just springing into action. There will be no strings for you, but you'll just be observing everything, and we will recap it on Wednesday because that is a late game. We're not gonna. I'm not gonna make.
I'm gonna be in no condition to recap.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make Jason home at 12:30 to record, nor will I be awake for that. So, with that, look for us midweek with a recap of the Kentucky game. Get your headlines in dbrpodcast@gmail.com. For Jason, I am Donald down here in Savannah, Georgia. Now we're going to Atlanta, where the Duke band will play us out and take us home.
I'm going to Vegas and I leave on Thursday. Maybe we could record on Thursday morning. My flight isn't till midday.
Okay.
Yeah, I could probably do that. We could record like on Thursday morning. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
I may need you and Scott to do the Wofford game. I may need you and Scott to do the Wofford game. There's a very decent chance I'm not. In fact, I'm almost certainly not going to get. I'm going to be in the Sphere when that game's going on. Seeing the U2 experience.
Oh, that is a development, a detail that you left out. Have a great time. That is going to be awesome. I am supremely jealous of that. You're gonna have a good week.
Yeah. Do you know about this? What they've done? So they had the U2 concerts, and there was like, tickets were thousands of dollars, that kind of thing. They recorded all of it. They've apparently created like holograms or something like that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then you can relive it. For my ticket, I got great tickets for like $150 each.
Yeah. So what they did was I think they did it with the with Fish, I want to say, or no, is that either the Fish or the Dead, who came in like in that break that U2 had.
Right.
So YouTube did it, and YouTube came in, and then they came out, and then I think it was either the Grateful Dead or Fish. It was Fish. It was Fish. I say that because one of my friends went, and he was like, it was a psychedelic experience in more ways than one. But they recorded that too, and I think that is going to come later on into 2025. They're going to do like basically between the residencies that the Sphere may have, they'll just do those hologram things where they can just again push play and sell tickets for $200 and people still enjoy themselves. So
yeah, this is very exciting. I'm looking forward to this.